papers and we finally got.
Nope. All right. See?
Yes.
Good. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for attending. Since we're doing this as a hybrid, in person, as well as people remotely, we'll go through a roll call here. This is the Conservation Commission meeting. And we meet once a month, second Tuesday of every month. I'm Michael DiLorenzo, Chairman of the Conservation Commission.
Karen Cagliaro, alternate.
Tom Fleischler, Commissioner.
Maureen Juice, planning and zoning staff.
Rob Ramsey, Commissioner. Joe Monson,
And you guys,
Hi, Hoffman, Vice Chair.
Carl Lewis.
Conservation member. Thank you. Thank you all. We do have, looks like an audience of citizens, both one and one. So if you would kindly tell us who you are, it's our, so we can have it for the official minutes, and also we'll get going with our guests.
Susan Kwasniewski.
And I see there's a Mr. Peter Zaragoza.
You're on mute, Peter.
Peter, can you hear us?
He might have stepped away from his,
Okay.
he's on the planning and zoning commission as well, so as an alternate on planning and zoning. So he's used to the remote meetings. So
Okay.
he may just not be.
All right, well, hopefully he will step back in and join us. And then we also have Steve Wood from Buildings and Grounds. He may have stepped out too. Oh, here he comes.
There he is.
Back in again. Thank you, Stephen. Actually, Steve, are you time constrained? Can we get our guest on first?
Not at all.
Thank you. So, hi.
I'm just visiting,
You're just visiting.
just a member of the public sitting in on a meeting.
Is that so? Thank you for sitting in and we love to have guests.
Welcome.
Hi.
I think that will
Okay,
welcome.
so the first order of business would be to, now we have the roll call, we have minutes from October, the October 12th meeting. And Marlo kindly sent them out in advance, so if anybody has any comments, modifications, or questions, now's the time. Otherwise, September?
No, it's October 12th.
Cut and paste.
Okay.
Okay. So that's an easy one. Anybody else have any comments on the minutes as written? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
So a motion from Carl, is that you?
Mhm. Yes, it was.
Thank you. To accept the minutes as written. Another one, second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Joseph. Joseph Mazza, thank you. Second, all in favor of accepting the minutes as written? Aye. So moved. Unanimous, thank you. So we're gonna move, before we get into new business, since we have Steve Wood here, we're gonna jump to use of town lands, and one of the issues that we have been discussing is Hatchery Brook and the fire pit, the non-permitted use of the fire pit. And we've been talking about signs and what else we can do. So just as a recap, the history of the Hatchery Brook as you come in by the garden is the old, it was a structure, and there was some work done there by a couple of Eagle Scouts. including the fire pit. And so it belongs to the fire pit. So we're talking about, and here's a picture of it right there.
Not yet for everybody, but hold on and I'll get there.
So we were talking about how we can prevent it being used unauthorized use. And Steve Wood came up with a potential solution. And that's, he's going to share it with us tonight. Steve, do we need to, oh, Maureen's back.
Sorry.
Get Steve back on? Or is-
Yeah.
Can you guys all hear me?
Yeah.
There you, there we go.
Usually if somebody's talking, they usually will appear if there's,
Okay.
and if they're not talking, they're not on the screen.
All yours, Steve.
All right, just if I'm being too quiet and need me to speak up, just give me like the thumbs up and I'll get a little bit louder. So our idea right off the bat is going to be is what we'd like to do is remove the inner circle, the metal ring, bring that down to Kensington Welding, have them weld a couple of posts coming out of it and have them make some type of grate for the top of it. And at that time, we would put 2 padlocks on there, universal to what the keys are already at the gate for them to access the area. We think that'll really help out. We're trying to find a way to secure the metal ring to the bricks themselves or to the pavers that are there. And we're thinking possibly pre-drill some holes, throw some Tabcons, and then on the outer ring of the stone that you see is we're going to take some mortar and mortar those stones all together so it'll be one giant unit. By looking by the grass that's around this and the way it's overgrowing, it doesn't look like it's been used in quite some time, especially throughout the wet summer. So I don't really think it's getting as much use as it was getting in the late fall when there were several complaints to the fire department and the police regarding illegal burns. So that's kind of our idea. And we're probably thinking somewhere in the ballpark of maybe possibly $250 to Kensington Welding, where they can take a plasma cutter, cut a nice circular edge around it so the plate sits right on there. And then we would reach out to them to figure out, do they want to put a handle on it where when the Boy Scouts go out there, they can unlock the locks and then just grab the handle and move it off. And at the end of the night, put it back on. Or do we want to go with like a finger where you'd be able to take 2 fingers, slide it into the metal and pull it off at that way. And the Boy Scouts are very responsible and respectful that I would imagine they would secure it at the end of the night or the next day when they were done with their event.
I would think so too. That would be part of the agreement. Anybody have any questions on that?
Sounds great to me, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thanks Steve Wood and his crews. They're always creative, helping out. So we need to have a motion to appropriate approximately $250 from the open space fund, Maureen.
Yes.
So if I could, that's what we need to help Steve get going. And Steve, well, actually, the second part of this is the signage, correct?
Yes, I was hoping we were going to dive into that before I got off as well.
Okay. So, all right, you need a motion for the welding and the materials for the locking mechanism.
Motion to provide funding for the welding or locking mechanism or both, whatever. Equal to thing is needed.
Approximately $250.
Approximately $250.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I second it.
Thank you, Tom. Any no further discussion? All in favor of accepting the motion as spoken? Signify if you're on camera. You guys have to talk or say what your vote is because we can't see you unless you talk. Guy, Carl,
Carl Lewis, yes.
thank you. Guy, you still
Got-
with us?
Guy Hoffman, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So moved. So the second part of it, we also talked about this for quite some time, some signage. Fires permitted, and not only this area, but it's technically Girl Scouts.
Looking for the wording. Hold on a second. We have some.
I apologize, I missed our last meeting, but I saw in the minutes, somebody said there's like a cord of wood that's been cut. Is that, did the scouts deliver that, or somebody just put a cord of wood there? For the fires that they, So I do think signage will be important to basically explain, I assume it's gonna say something for scout use only. Okay.
So if I may, at the last meeting, I believe that the commission decided that a no fire sign may be appropriate and voted for that. However, in staff discussions, in that fires are permitted by permit, saying no fires. One of the main concerns we had as a staff, Park and Rec, Jim Mahoney, myself, probably Steve was probably involved in the conversations as well, was that if you say no fires, but then somebody can have fires, then everybody else is going to disregard the sign because the sign doesn't mean anything because, oh, they got permission to use the thing, we can use the thing because it's a sign that means nothing. So instead, perhaps we came up with a number of wording. Michael is also involved in this conversation, but thinking that fires only by youth groups with permit from Berlin Parks and Recreation Department, and then the no fire symbol. The symbol with the X through it that would show no fires. Might be, our preference, a couple of our preferences. I don't know how the rest of you feel about wording or if anyone has a more articulate suggestion. These showing on the screen, and I think you guys at home can see it on the screen as well, were 4 of the options that we came up with. Numbering doesn't coincide with the list.
I guess I prefer number 3 to the other ones, but Parks and Rec does have a permitting process.
Yes,
today.
they're the ones that give the permits to the scouts to use it. The scouts have to go through them to get use of, because they're the ones with the mechanism for a permit. So while it is overseen by the Conservation Commission, it's a conservation area and it is conservation under the conservation purview. They're the ones that have that mechanism to issue a permit. So many years ago, it was established that they were the ones that issue that because they have the mechanism by which to do it.
Does the regulation or whatever around the permit specify only youth groups or?
I
is it
believe
open
so.
to-
I believe it says youth groups in the, that from the last time, and it was some time ago that I researched how the use of this area was. I think it was when the gentleman, the young man came in to rehab this space, that I looked at what the language was, and it is specific, or not specific groups, but it is specific as to being groups that can use it, sanctioned, organized groups, not Smith Lane hoodlums.
What the teachers from the Britain High want to go
Right.
right?
It's around it.
You'd have to check with the Parks and Rec to see if they fit the parameters.
Well, I prefer number 3. I don't know.
So it is it's what I called number 2, the second one, but it is not listed as number 3 because 2, 4, and 6 don't have anything written.
So would there be other youth groups other than scouting groups that would be able to get? a
I
permit?
believe other groups
That's why
can
you're-
get it. I think Girl Scouts
Maybe
can get it.
it
I
would be
think,
more
I
general.
don't know that. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think there is wording
Like with
in
a
that,
Church
that
groups
it's
would
certain
be able
youth
to have
groups can
permits.
use them. I believe, I don't think we can
So that-
discriminate
right. So
necessarily.
that makes
It's
sense,
within,
not to just say scout.
right. And or if that ever changes, then we have a sign that actually is. So if they turn down a group, if the Parks and Rec Department turns down a group based on who's allowed to be the group, then they're looking to that regulation or that agreement as opposed to looking at the sign, which, the rule can change over time when the sign can still be the same sign or universal sign.
I was just gonna say, it's very wordy to put it up on a sign.
um, like fire permit required for youth groups only.
I kind of felt that way when I had first discussions about this. And I can go both ways, but the way it's worded, that is a lot of words. But by putting youth group on there, I guess the idea is to include every other group, the New Britain High School Teachers Association or whatever.
Fires permitted youth groups only for Berlin Parks and Rec, something like that.
Does that really change it?
I think we want to put permit, from my standpoint, we would want to put permit required.
Yeah, that's what I said.
So, oh, I'm sorry, I missed it. You said permit. I'm sorry.
Well, I guess you can get into the nitty-gritty if you really put park and rec, it's, I mean, it's permit required, somebody's gonna inquire in town hall.
Yeah, and then they can send it there.
They'll get there, they'll get there.
Permit required for youth groups only, something like that.
Can I make
Steve,
a
does that
suggestion?
have Steve, I'm sorry, hold on. Do you have an idea of the size of the sign with that?
I believe the standard sign is like 12 by 18. I think fires only by youth groups with permit from Berlin Park Recreation Department with a no fire symbol. I think that's a lot of lost words and a very small sign.
That's what I thought.
I agree. I think you should just say no fires without a permit. Police will be called. That's it. Because I
Not
mean, who
on
cares?
site.
Who cares? Who cares? Who cares if youth groups or not? Just say no fires without a permit. The police will come, and they have. That's it, and then no fire symbol. Who cares about the youth groups? If you're going to start a fire out there, you don't care if it's a youth group or not a youth group. You just want to know that the police are going to come. I'll shut up.
And the youth groups are gonna know where to go to get
Right,
permit without having to be a sign.
Quick call.
So, does,
What's the final wording?
I don't, yeah, so,
What did
Carl, would you
Carl
like
say?
to word that again?
My thought, respectfully, would be no fires allowed without a permit. Maybe you say, I don't know, Steve, if you think this would be helpful, but probably not. Call whomever, call 828, whatever it is. But no fires without a permit. Police take notice with a no fire symbol. Because nobody who's going there to, have a little, little fire with their girlfriend and a little wine cares if youth groups only are there. You're going there to have a fire, and we get called out there 3-4 times a year for that. So that's just my thought. It may be a wrong thought. I don't know, but
I like it.
If I may, I think that one of the thoughts in adding the youth groups was to keep everybody from contacting the town to get a permit when they wouldn't even be eligible for a permit. So I think it was trying to, wrangle that. At the same time, I think this is also the appropriate option. I'm also wondering if you might allow, if we get the mock-up from the sign company, to then have staff decide what fits, because if they mock it up and a word hangs off or it doesn't fit quite right, if we can, myself, Jim, Steve can have the authority to
Don't do that?
to tweak it. If they give us they'll send us a
Yeah.
sample, a PDF of it, and we either say good or not. And if it doesn't balance, we typically for other items would tell them we don't like that sign, fix it. And we change the size of the lettering, or we change something else. What do you think, Steve?
Maureen, I think we take the sign number 2, fires only by youth groups, have a mock-up of that. And I think what Carl said makes a lot of sense. No fires without permit, police can be contacted. And next meeting, we bring those in front of everybody and let you guys decide what's gonna pop out and stand and resonate to somebody walking by.
That's great. Sounds good. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions for Steve or this group? Steve, while we still have you, we'll jump ahead. Anything that we should know about the garden?
We're probably sometime in the next couple of weeks, we're gonna start bringing out a load of leaves or 2 loads of leaves to dump them in the far right corner, start letting those decompose. We're gonna grab some more wood chips. It looks like a lot of the wood chips have been used. We'll neaten that up. A lot of gardeners have cleaned up their plots. They've dumped that to the left side of the fence. We will clean that off, and then I believe we'll be good to go for next spring. The only thing that I'm uncertain of when you guys want me to take down the sign and store that in the shed. And then at the same time, do we want to change the locks, which we have not done in multiple years?
I would think that anytime the next time you're there, the sign can come down for the winter. And then I think we should think about changing the locks for spring.
What about the porta potty? Has it been removed?
The porta potty is removed prior to November 1st. It's usually removed like October 30th.
I did talk to the garden coordinator last week, and a week or two ago, she was working on a wrap-up email to the gardeners. She doesn't have me on her distribution list, so I don't get a lot of the back and forth between them all. But I believe she was trying to do a wrap-up or cleanup day, so if we can coordinate, if the locks are gonna get changed, if we could coordinate that she's actually gotten them to do that last little push, because getting them to do their own cleanup work would be preferable to waiting to the spring, I think, and the weather has held out. I mean, certainly if the weather doesn't hold out, then, immediate locking, but I would suggest now that they are a coordinated group that has been working together as well as they have this summer. It's been it's been a delight for our staff. We've gotten a lot less garden calls this year than last with the new garden coordinator. So I'd like to give her that opportunity to tell us it's a good time.
Even though it's in the rules and regs, every year that people overwinter plants in there. So the locks have to be coordinated with Carol as well. A lot changes if it occurs before next spring.
All right. What are you good with working with Carol with me to coordinate that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Very good. Thank you again, Steve.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having me, guys. Have a happy holiday if I don't see you, but I'm sure I'll talk to you prior to Thanksgiving.
it. Okay,
Take care.
you too. Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
Bye now. Peter, are you on? No. Walked away. Okay. So back to our agenda item. So Maureen, if you'd be kind enough to, as you always do, give us a quick overview, especially if it's, commercial, industrial, and it's not a lot or anything for our purview.
So
Comment on that.
I actually was unexpectedly out of the office when we were putting together this agenda. And a couple of the items have already seen Planning and Zoning Commission and gone through that process. That's 1897. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not that one. The extension of Carl C. Garcia's excavation permit was in existing approved application. It was just an extension, and that was approved by Planning and Zoning Commission last week. And again, no changes from their approval, except for the fact that regulations changed that allow for the extensions. And the Brandon Buchanan Artisan Building, again, that was a use change in an existing built out property on Deming Road. And that also went before P&Z and was approved last week. Then I'll move on to number 4 first. Number 4 is the site plan amendment of James Meehan. Again, that's a use change for a contractor shop in an existing building on Four Rod Road. It's Unit 7 of the industrial complex building. So again, no changes to the site, no changes to anything. It's a change of use with it from within the building. And 1897, the first item listed, 1897 Berlin Turnpike was the insulation business at the corner of Bishop's, Spruce Brook. And it again is a change of use of that building from a non-conforming use to use that's allowed in the zone by special permit, and no changes to the disturbed areas, no wetlands in the area that I'm aware of, no expansion into another. So I'm thinking that they're all existing with the commercial industrial properties that are not asking for any changes.
Anybody have any questions on any of these particular items?
I have none.
I mean, and that's the way the calendar falls off oftentimes for, it might be on our agenda and then it's already gone through the other commissions before we get to see it. So
If you don't mind, I'll mention another couple of projects that I don't have enough information on yet. We're either waiting for additional information from them or what have you. I think we've mentioned before, and again, go to enough commission meetings. I'm not sure whether this commission saw it or not. 550 to 554 Berlin Turnpike. That's the property includes the ABC Supply Company. They've applied for a special permit and site plan and zone change application for a mixed use project there. The Planning and Zoning Commission has voted to obtain a peer consultant review for the project, as they did with the Diadio project that's just to the north of that. So we haven't dove into all of the nuances of that, but that will be utilizing the existing ABC Supply building as commercial, another commercial building out front to the north just a bit, and then residential proposed behind the ABC Supply building. That's upcoming and will be before P&Z. StanChem, which is actually StanCom is the name of the entity, is coming in with they made application, although we needed the prints and everything else, they only sent electronically. Their application for some remediation work they'll be doing an excavation permit at their site on Berlin Street, all the way out from East Berlin. All the way, it's the last property, we're gonna say all the way out, it's the last property on Berlin Street on the left in East Berlin.
here we go.
And it's something that's ongoing. I think they do this every number of years.
What are they doing? I'm sorry, they're excavating.
It's excavation.
For what?
I believe it goes with their DEP licensing. Again, we didn't get all the plans we needed. We have it electronically. We don't have it. The entire set yet.
Because the river does run
Right
behind
there.
through there, they have a fish ladder and everything else.
Okay, I will make a note of that as well. 1 second. I don't know their status with wetlands and or if they had to go there for the same. Pending, talked about, yeah, I think everything else we've talked about in the past that has to anything to do with P&Z. I mean, with Conservation Commission at this point.
Well, if not, see next month, right?
Yeah, these others were all on already.
Thank you.
I do have a few more. When you move on to staff comments, I have something that I would like to add. Information.
Okay. We're almost there. That's it for on the agenda item. So we have use of town lands. We talked about the garden already. Does anybody else have any questions about the garden? Yeah, and Maureen, thank Carol, and we really now that once it's closed up and things lighten up for her, if she would like to come here and just say hello, spend a few
Okay.
minutes, extend the invitation, because we
Certainly.
definitely would like to thank her as always, but
Yeah, for stopping a couple of encroachments we've had.
garlic encroachments.
Oh, Carol, good, the garden.
Yes,
So I'm
Carol,
thinking,
good,
yeah,
no.
I was reading Bicentennial Park and thinking about the encroachment that our
Yeah.
new CEO, Carol, handles. And so,
We'll talk about that after we talk about staff.
sure. Both, I will.
Too many Carols. Anybody, so nobody has any questions about the garden or? It's pretty self-explanatory, and it's running well, so we'll get Carol Gooden in here, the garden coordinator, that's who we want. Thank her profusely for the great year. And then Carl, I know you said you had to leave, you have anything?
Sir, I have something that's related to use of town lands, Bicentennial Park, if it's the time of the agenda for that, sir.
Yeah, that's right after garden, so. That and Maureen will give us the update on the approachment too.
Okay, so as some of you may be aware, there is a draft ordinance that is going up for, I believe, a public hearing on November 30th regarding a leash law, a leash ordinance for the town. And it specifically, as I read it, or as at least I read the agenda item, it excludes specifically, quote unquote, the meadow area of Bicentennial Park. And I don't know exactly, because I don't have the ordinance in front of me right now. I don't know if they have defined exactly what the meadow area of Bicentennial Park is, and I'm not sure, even having walked that since the early 70s, that I could define it for you. But it also talks about dogs being under immediate control if they're not leashed. So without belaboring the point and with some time for conversation, I'd like to make a motion that the Conservation Commission explicitly oppose any leash ordinance that excludes any portion of passive recreation land. I think it's inconsistent with the intent of our properties that we use for conservation, the passive conservation use. And I'd be happy to discuss that or answer any questions about why I think that's the case. But I will make a motion, if it's okay, Michael. I will make a motion to that the Conservation Commission explicitly oppose an ordinance or any ordinance that would exclude any portion of any passive conservation area under our purview from any leash ordinance.
Carl, question for you. I think it needs to be a little bit more specific. You know, in other words, you're saying that dogs should be leashed, correct?
Who's speaking, please?
Oh, it's Karen.
Oh, hi, Karen. I'm sorry, I can't see you or hear very well.
Oh, I'm sorry. But I just want it to be very specific and concise. So I just that's my only question with the motion.
Karen, I would be willing to withdraw my motion if you had something that you thought was more specific and concise. And I will say this, that now is not, I don't know if now is the time for discussion. What I mean is that if we have a leash ordinance, right? And we are worried about unleashed dogs for whatever we are worried about, and I believe that's probably for liability and stuff like that. That it ought to be universally applicable, including to our conservation areas. But
I like that wording better. Thank you.
okay, very good. Then I thought.
Okay, so
Yeah,
neither
I-
Marla or I got that wording quite.
All right, so let me. I can't hear you guys too well.
Oh, sorry. Maybe I'll try turning it up.
I'm feeling a little shiny too, but I'll withdraw my motion and say that I would make a motion that any leash ordinance that is considered by the town of Berlin or adopted by the town of Berlin to be universally applicable to any across the town, I guess, including any piece of conservation land.
Yeah, I think if we're making a motion or you're making a motion, it has to be, you have to add conservation, the open space areas. That's really our only purpose. Did you get that? Sorry. So, any discussion?
What?
I was at the ordinance committee meeting when they were discussing their proposed ordinance, and I also was at the town council meeting when they again discussed it and were trying to refine it. And I believe they even made some changes after that. And then whatever this thing looks like is going to go to the hearing on November 30th. My understanding when they were carving out Bicentennial Park open field was, and I know they called it a meadow, but it's really a big open field.
Yeah.
And they may have changed that wording. But the intent was to be temporary because they're looking for a place, an appropriate place for us off-leash people, the dog people. I call those dog people all to have, to enjoy in town. So this would be temporary because that is the place that traditionally we have gone off-leash, especially the big open field. I don't really know how many people go around the trails with their dogs off-leash. I don't do that, so I really don't know. But that was my understanding when they decided to try to carve out Bicentennial, was that it would just be temporary because they're still looking for that magical place where we can have our dogs off leash. So I don't know if it's that much of a concern that you have to worry about now, or if you can wait and see what this ordinance comes out looking like. Because I don't know that even at the town meeting, it sounded like the attorney was going to go back with the town manager, and they were going to work on it. So that was my understanding. And I know that the intent from it sounded like the town council people that spoke, they understand that there's a significant number of people that obviously want this, and they're just trying to make everybody happy.
So I think that the thing though is that we as the Conservation Commission have to uphold the intent and the integrity of our conservation open spaces. And that's why this is exactly needed from conservation.
Well, I'd like to ask what the definition of passive use is. Are there specific uses that are included in that definition of passive use? Because it sounds like that's where you're coming from. And I don't understand why walking your dog off leash is a passive. So I'd like to know if that's specifically excluded in the definition of passive use.
May I ask a question to Mary Catherine, please?
Sure.
So first of all, Mary Catherine, I'm assuming that you've read the Plan of Conservation and Development, and just wondering, what other parcels are being considered by the dog people right now for, in terms of like, this is a it purports to be a 6-month ordinance. Do you have any idea of where the folks are looking? What has happened? Is there stuff that's been discussed in terms of where that may transfer the burden of unleashed dogs to?
Well, the dog people have had no say. Me being a pretty active participant in town things, and Susan, of course, also being, we've had no input. We've offered to be on a committee to do whatever. The dog people have no input. My understanding is that the town, and whoever that is, I can't say, looked at Pistol Creek. There's a specific former golf, hole there that's mowed and everything. And for one reason or another, I don't know if that's still in contention. And now they're also talking about an area at Pistol Creek behind the clubhouse. But that's a problem because there's Camp Thunder Moon or something uses it in the summer. So every time they look at a place, there's a reason why. They've also looked at, I want to say, was it Kensington Orchard, Susan? We took a walk up that steep, is it Kensington Orchard? We were at, okay. They talked about Kensington Orchard at a meeting. So Susan and I walked up that steep hill. And I think I'm kind of fit, but I was huffing and puffing. And again, looking at people that use Bicentennial now, you do not have to have any specific level of fitness to walk into Bicentennial. It's level, it's flat.
So the answer to the question is, the answer is you guys don't. The answer to the question. I'm sorry. I'm just cutting to the chase because I do have to leave. So that there's no alternative that you've.
They've looked at other. I'm telling you the places they've looked at. I'm not saying they've eliminated any. Oh, and they also looked at the Shear Farm, next to the gardens. That big field there, which they talked about, they could level it and grade it and mow it, but now they can't because there's something that I believe there's some kind of birds or something that nest there, rabbits, I don't know. So everything they've looked at, there seems to be a reason why they can't. So I don't know where we're at, really. I don't know.
Again, I go back to the thing is, Bicentennial has not ever been a dog park in the sense of what our mission, what our purpose is. And so as a commission, we should take that seat.
Well, and again, before it was part of Conservation Commission when it was under Parks and Recreation, and it was never a dog park, but it was allowed there. So when it wasn't part of Conservation Commission, there was an allowance for people to go off leash, dogs under your control, of course. There, so that goes back prior to Conservation Commission. And right now, the only big space there is Pistol Creek that's not under conservation, as far as I know. Is that right? Yeah. So.
Well, not that I did much of a study of it, but I have seen dog parks in other towns. And what strikes me about those is they all seem to be fenced.
That's a problem.
What's the problem?
Being fenced in.
Oh.
Fencing can be I've researched a lot of different aspects of this, and fencing in can cause some dogs that were never aggressive ever in their life to get territorial and to get aggressive. And then you have the issue of you're going to have big dogs, small dogs in the same area, different areas. There's a lot of issues to that, but I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. My only thing was bringing it up was that in going to those two meetings, the ordinance committee meeting, the town council meeting, it sounded like this was just temporary because they didn't want to shut out the people who wanted to have somewhere to take their dogs. And they've been doing it right along anyway. So they're leaving it alone for now, and they're still looking for that perfect place.
The perfect without a fence.
Well, I don't know. See, that's my opinion, but that's only mine. There's other people that think a fence
Fence
in.
around the perimeter?
Yeah.
Why would that be?
There's just studies that show that can cause issues with dogs being I think
Doesn't
it's
it keep people on either side safer by not, people that are
exactly,
not
you know,
walking?
I know, we have our, you know, there's opinions on both, and, you know, I'm just, if they ended up with an area with a fence, fine. I don't know, that's just because of things I've studied and researched, it can be a problem.
Well, so I would say this, that in terms of large dog and small dog together, that's not going to be solved at Bicentennial, because I've been approached by uncontrolled dogs of large and small size on my same trip. So so respectfully, I disagree. I don't think that there's a solution in what Mary Catherine is suggesting, and I don't think that necessarily a 6-month ordinance is the answer to what has been. I think that members of this commission who have been members for a while will argue will agree. It has been this has been going on since I've been on the commission. I think I joined in 2005. I don't think that a 6-month temporary ordinance is going to solve a problem that the town needs to address. And I will say this, that Bicentennial Park, if you go back and look at historically at the record, which I have, was meant to be a park for all to visit. For example, Mayor Ward in 1982, when defending the purchase of Bicentennial West, said, this is a property to to be open to everyone whenever they want. The park is like insurance, he said, so that your children and my children can go there without concern. You know, I don't see historically, and this park was purchased with federal and state funds around the time of the bicentennial. I don't see that reserving this park, and that's what it is, reserving the park for what is de facto uncontrolled dogs. You can say dogs under control, but you can talk to anyone in town and they will say, most people in town will say that, you know, the dogs there, they don't bring their dogs or their children there anyway, because the dogs are not. It's not a place that was reserved for dogs. Now, I don't think that dogs should be excluded. I just say that any leash ordinance that is considered, in all fairness, should be considered universally, because the fallacy that you're going to have completely controlled or under controlled dogs, that just doesn't happen. Respectfully, I would ask the commission members to second. I'm not sure it has been seconded, and to vote for this, which clearly is consistent with the plan of conservation and development, which, by the way, speaks about passive recreation.
And does that exclude, since I may not remember every aspect of that, does that exclude in passive recreation, walking with your dog?
What I'm saying is, if you're going to worry about a leash law, which I am only assuming that we are contemplating a leash law for purposes of liability, because dogs have been, or dog owners more likely have been irresponsible, that if you're going to do that everywhere else in town, and by the way, the agenda item lists every other park that this is going to be, and I can read them if you'd like, but I don't think I have to. We can all go back, or I'll send it to you. That this is universally applied, and that we do not accept a place that was never meant to be a dog park and is not a dog park, is a place for all the people of Berlin to go and enjoy. It's a beautiful spot. I love it myself. I don't go there anymore because I'm approached by dogs, or I step in dog excrement.
Hey, Rob, did you have something you want to talk about?
Well, I was just gonna bring up the idea, if the town is forcing or is going to approve a leash law, how can the town then agree that there's a spot where dogs don't have to be on a leash? That just seems like your whole, just from the town, I'm no lawyer, but it seems like that's just opening up the lawsuits. And again, if that whole area or an area was fenced in, you know, I think it's large enough, I don't think they're gonna get territorial over that. Then at least you have a place that the dogs can be free, off leash, and other people like Carl, can walk there and they're not gonna be approached by a dog because as long as they don't go in the gate, they don't have this issue. But I just think the town is, that seems better. I'm not a lawyer, but it doesn't seem like a smart move by the town to have one spot where they don't have to have a leash. And I'm a dog guy, you know, and everything else, but I keep thinking, yeah. I just think that's a big mistake for the town. And I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to create a place to make dog people happy who want it, but they don't, for whatever reason, just find a place and make a dog park.
So we have a leash law, we have a leash ordinance. Now, this is a modification and a tightening of that leash ordinance. So it's not like we haven't had a leash ordinance in the past. The town had a leash ordinance, they decided it wasn't sufficient. And I've gone to the meetings where it was all in discussion. Their focus is on neighborhoods and ball fields and playgrounds, because that's where people have been not behaving very well, and not being responsible. But they also were very specific about including all the town lands. And this last thing just came up as, I think, just an appeasement for now, until they find that perfect place. So, and I don't know what's gonna happen November 3rd. I don't know.
Very well, could be. It sounds like it. The last one they do is a 6 month period. Anybody, so.
Michael,
Yes,
it's
Guy.
Guy Hoffman, Vice Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I almost think that we have a larger issue here again too, you know, and I think Karen, you might have brought this up, that you know, it's an exception for now, which on a land that's you know, for conservation purposes. My guess is that most of the list that's going to come up for other places to replace Bicentennial, if that ever happened, is also going to end up being conservation property. And from what Mary Catherine said, you know, several of them have been, you know, under discussion or you know, part of researching some kind of place. So Carl's motion brings that forward as far as, you know, in this case, and kind of makes a statement for that next step, in a sense, you know, of like, well, if not Bicentennial, you know, and we're not in favor of that, you know, where else, not on other Conservation Commission run property. The problem that is also still out there is that the town council has been able and has the power to move properties and shift properties to Parks and Rec or out of conservation if there's not anything specifically in how they were obtained. You know, certainly the properties that came from state grants and Bicentennial, same kind of that have caveats to them, wouldn't be. But there are some other properties that the town council could just say, this is where we want it, and it's no longer under Conservation Commission purview. It's under some other entity. But I'm not opposed to taking a stand on saying that we don't we would rather not see a property that's not going to, you know, that would be exempt from a leash law be one of our conservation areas.
All right, thank you, Guy. So this is pretty straight and narrow for us right now. So Carl, actually, Marlo, would you kind of to read back the
Commissioner Lewis made a motion to oppose any ordinance that excludes any conservation area from the leash ordinance. The leash ordinance should be universal across all town property.
Okay, so that was the motion from Carl. We need a second.
I second that.
Tom Heisler seconded. Thank you. All in favor of the motion as proposed by Carl Lewis and reiterated by Marlo? Aye.
And do you mind if I
Aye.
do a roll call just to make sure that
Okay,
we're, I think that, especially with it going to the town council, I would like that for the
1 second,
record.
though. Could you read it back one more time? Just the last sentence. What was the last?
The leash ordinance should be universal across all town properties.
Should we call it town properties or open space properties? So I don't know.
So I actually, if I may, I think, or did I, wait. Nope, sorry, I was reading the first motion you made, we changed it to what you said, I think.
I guess technically, since we're talking about only open space, it should be across open space properties.
I'm asking. Kind of, too. I just.
Carl, what do you think?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. You know, I am only interested in and obviously this committee, which has very little bailiwick to begin with. You know, I'm only interested in those conservation properties that you know, involve passive recreation. So that's a great modification. And I can't hear you guys or see you guys too well, but if we could modify my motion to include not all town properties, but conservation properties or passive
The word you used before was conservation lands.
conservation lands. I guess that's good. You know, I'm trying to be precise with
That's
my
within
language.
our purview here. right?
Someone in the room said open space properties. So those are the,
Yeah, open space properties. I think Mary Catherine made a good point. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, you know, we're not working with Parks and Rec property right now. And as Guy said, you know, there are certain properties that could be redesignated or portions thereof be redesignated for this purpose. I'm not against dogs or dogs running free or anything like that. I'm just against people not being able to use properties de facto. So anyway, conservation lands, I guess, is as good as anything.
Is everybody good with that? Would you like to read back again?
No, I think I'm okay. That was.
Okay.
So will you re-second that?
I will.
Okay.
all right, so now Chairman DiLorenzo,
Affirmative.
Tom Heisler, Guy Hoffman,
Aye.
Carl Lewis,
Aye.
Joseph Mazza, and Rob Ramsey.
Aye.
So those are the full seated members.
Right, thank you. So moved, unanimous. Thank you, everybody. It was a nice targeted discussion there. I'm sure this will continues.
Can I just add that I think Carl mentioned that he saw it there, the agenda item is posted on the last town council agenda because it was scheduled. I believe you'll be able to also link it for November 30th. That public hearing, to the best of my knowledge, was set for November 30th and nothing has changed about that for the town council.
Thank you.
And that was one of my items that I was gonna mention. So, thank you, Carl.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Somebody else had something else. Was it about the garden? Oh, Maureen, you had some comments, staff comments?
That there's a public hearing for an ordinance on November 30th.
All right.
And I thought the council, what, 7 p.m.? Again, I would, as we approach that date, check the website or call the town clerk's office to confirm or get a copy of anything or what have you, but the information for the town council items should be linked on the website. On the calendar, if you go to the calendar page and pick the meeting on the calendar, you can usually get linked to where the items are for them. And that's where I just pulled it up from the last meeting.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
Hi, it's Guy Hoffman again. Maureen, I just had a quick question about one of the properties on the Turnpike.
Okay,
With, just south of like where the antiques and where Worthington Ridge comes out, that was the individual building motel with the bricks.
yes. So it does have an application in for the, what do they call it? They call it little houses. That's going to be consistent with, or the proposal should be consistent with the text amendment that was made to allow for the rehabilitation or reconstruction on motel sites or the conforming use of turning them into permanent dwelling units, and not necessarily turning them into them, but the proposals for the most part will be reconstruction. They are allowed to keep a portion in the regulation for, if a building is in decent shape and they want to rehabilitate it for the use, but they would be individual living units as opposed to motel units.
Okay,
It'll be
that-
eliminating non-conforming motels. It's an opportunity to eliminate non-conforming motels and provide permanent housing on those sites instead, if a developer chooses to do so.
okay, I remember, I was remembering that change, I thought didn't preclude like apartments or, like one large building going in.
I don't have the language in front of me, but they can be apartment, they can be rental. They may even say rental, but they can be attached units. No
Okay.
more than 6 may be attached for one building.
Okay, I mean, that parcel isn't all that big. I'm just wondering, that, is this something that's gonna be substantially larger and,
So it will be, I just read it. 16, I believe it's 16 individual units and it's 16 individual buildings, single unit buildings, and two duplex buildings for a total of 20 units on that parcel.
wow, that's more than the individual buildings were for the motel. And those were pretty small.
Again, they're
So
proposing
that-
what they wrote, the regulation was proposed to meet the parameters that they,
Okay,
that I
Well,
believe,
that's-
I believe their proposal meets the criteria of the language of the amendment to the regulation that was
Okay,
made
well-
earlier here. Again, we're still working on that zoning review. I hope to have it done by Thursday afternoon.
okay. Well, it sounds like that change is gonna work exactly how I thought it was going to, which means that it's gonna just increase the impervious surfaces and build up and on sites that you have a chance to have something else be put on it, but by prioritizing the houses, and housing on there is still it's gonna take something that relatively treed and grass and stuff it's gonna just build it up. So you'll tear down some of these smaller ones, which we need to get rid of, but these will probably turn into the new problem ones on the turnpike eventually. All right. Yeah, I was kind of hoping that when you get rid of some of those, that you might actually, have some kind of improvement on to the property, but okay. Thank you. I was just wondering, we never saw anything on that. I didn't know what was.
I'm
what was
sorry, I
going
didn't
in.
realize because should have been on this agenda then. I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking that it wasn't already on one of your agendas.
Yeah. Okay.
I can, if we want to take a pause for a minute, I can go run and get the plans I have. I don't believe we have a scanned plan, but I can search for it for a second.
No, that's what, I mean,
Give
in
me a
the end, in the end, it's got very little, in our direct purview, you know, it's more, it was more about the change in the zoning change, or not zoning change, but the change.
Right.
The amendment.
Actually, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Give me 1 second. Fran scanned it today, knowing she and I would both be out tomorrow so that we have it available for any calls. So give me 1 second to share the screen. If you give me a minute to reshare. And again, my mistake for not putting it on the agenda. So no, they're housing units. They're not motel.
For purchase or?
And let me, just because we do have, we didn't distribute this and we do have people both on listening as well as in the room, I feel, bear with me, I'll read their summary. Fair, okay, too long?
Well, I mean, but is it, what does this go to, your next meeting?
Yeah, it's even, I think it's the next meeting. Public hearings, I don't have that.
Yeah,
It's probably November 18th. If not, it would be the December 2nd meeting, which is both before your meeting.
Everyone wants to hear about it, sure, it's not really purview of us, but sounds like a lot of curiosity.
I can leave it up for a sec. I can just show you the map. Tell me what you
Show
thought.
the map.
Just go back to the map. Okay, so it's not the greatest scan, because like I said, it wasn't delivered electronically, so we had to scan it. So these are all single units under 1,000 square feet. And then this over here on the southwest corner and the southerly property line are duplex units or buildings.
So that's southbound on the turnpike.
This is the southbound lane.
Middle lane should be down
The
here,
next
right?
road, right?
This, so it's
Yeah,
right
I think
here.
this is there.
Meadow Lane is this road right here, and the site is just there, and then
The truck place, yeah.
that would be Worthington Ridge. Okay.
Yeah, the antiques place is next to it, right? Just north of it.
Yes, right here, 1660 Berlin Turnpike.
To the south, I think it's not all about.
I believe so. I believe this. There might be something in between. I'm not sure.
That seems to be a trend, I think.
Now, are those units existing or they could be built?
No, these are the proposed buildings on the site that is currently the motel, which is 20%. Hold on 1 minute. I think it was 16. I'm guessing at the street address without. No. Ugh.
Lauren, did you say that they could be rental or?
I've gotta reread it. So I'm sorry, I was working on something else all day today and just.
Curiosity.
bear with me on, those of you online, it'll just take me a minute to share what I've got. I've just brought up the aerial view of what's existing there, so.
I think it's probably 9 that are existing.
Are you guys seeing the aerial view now, Guy?
So that's what was there.
That's
Oh,
what's
you're
there.
muted. You're muted.
It was there.
Yes, it just popped up. Thanks.
Okay, so right now you have units here and units here. Steve told me earlier today how many units exist there. Maybe 9 or 10 buildings. I thought he said there was closer to 16 units.
And then they're gonna build around that circle.
And then, again, I can flip back and forth if you want me to flip back to the plan now, I can. I just have to, just takes me a second. Yeah, that's in the regulation. It's in the regulation. Just spread out on my desk right now. I'm sorry. Might be able to. We are presuming that that will be the case. I'm not sure this is going to come up clear enough to read. As far as the maximum building coverage, oh, I can't read it. I can't read that number. I'm sorry.
It just, they raised it all and put,
The temporary fencing.
Yeah, they got the demolition permit a while back, I believe. Do you want to add Conservation Commission comments with regard to this?
Guy, you had some pertinent comments there about the existing pervious. Want to add anything?
I don't know,
Kind of tough.
that, you know, I mean, in the end, this is what the change was meant to do, I guess, so. And
It is
I,
an existing developed zone out there. Yeah.
and I think we made some comments at the time about that it might allow for, you know, making things more dense and making more impervious cover, you know, along the turnpike, but and I think that's kind of what you see here, but so I don't know. I mean, that's what it was meant to do, I guess, so.
Yeah. I think we're good more than enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Maureen?
I think that was it. You had asked about the violation at
Oh,
on
bicentennial.
Wine Sap. I believe they brought that into conformance. They did get another letter about their seasonal decorations that had continued. There was a skeleton in the tree, and we just kind of wanted to make sure that it gets entirely cleaned up. So that's probably just about at the 15 days now. So, and Carol did not give me an update today. Weren't able to catch back up on that. But they did substantially come into conformance. Dave did go back out to confirm, because I was concerned that while they'd indicated that they'd moved the gazebo and their RV off of the town property. I was concerned where the property line was because that wasn't clear to me when I went out as a follow-up visit. So Dave, who staked the line, went back out and said that it was off of, everything had been moved from the town property. And
So
as
it's
I
got-
reported last night, except it's the
Where the sign is in
little
conservation.
decoration. The grass, as I reported last month, is mowed by the town around that cul-de-sac. Along with the field in Bicentennial. That's all within the towns. If the town does that, the neighbor was not mowing the lawn, which was also a concern that was reported. That the neighbor was also encroaching by mowing the lawn there, and though the town has been mowing that around the cul-de-sac. Our facilities guys said they do it.
Oh, no, they do it, but he does it in between. That's what he does for a living. He does lawns. So when he's doing everybody else's lawn, he just does the whole area. So.
I'll make sure that our grounds knows that. I believe he's no longer on, but I'll have a discussion. We'll circle back to that.
Thank you. We got three. Motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Paul, I think is clicked off, so it's,
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Have a good,
Thanksgiving, yes. Everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Good night.